Hello, everyone, and thank you for tuning in to the Indiana State Police Roadshow. I'm your host, Sergeant John Prine, the State Police Public Information Office. The Roadshow is brought to you by the Indiana State Police Alliance and Cops for Kids, a subsidiary of the State Police Alliance. You can find out more information about our sponsor at www.indianasfinest.com. If you've ever seen the Roadshow or heard the Roadshow, you're probably familiar with my next guest because he's such a wealth of knowledge and has so much going on in that brain of his. And he never says no when I ask him to come on the show. My good buddy, Mike Pruitt.
Hello.
Captain Mike Pruitt from the Wayne Township Fire Department. Still captain, right?
Today it is.
Okay.
Today it is. So
All right.
we're in good shape.
So it's that time of year. Finally, short sleeve shirts. I'm sure you've broken out your flip-flops and your swim trunks.
I have. I was going my flip-flops in today just to kind of
Well, you
set
usually
the mood,
wear flip-flops to work, don't you?
Well, you know, there you go. I know where you're going with this. You're going down that firefighter road, aren't you?
All right. It's summertime. Summertime means lots of outdoor activities, one of which involves water, swimming.
Mm-hmm.
So what's number one thing we want people to know? Whether you have a backyard pool, a neighborhood pool, a retention pond, there's a lot of things that could go wrong.
Well, you know, people have been just dying to get out into the water, posting pictures of their jet skis. They're shopping for their summer clothes. And so as we roll into summer and we start thinking about going swimming, you know, first of all, we need to swim in designated areas. You mentioned retention ponds. Typically, those aren't good places to go swimming.
I don't know if I've ever seen a retention pond that's good for swimming.
I wouldn't want to swim in some of these retention ponds if you've actually went up and looked closely. That there's a reason why they're there, and they're not for recreation. They capture everything that runs off in a neighborhood.
Right.
So I wouldn't even want to get in one. Pretty nasty stuff. If you do go to a designated swimming location, then make sure you're not going alone. You know, we should never leave children unsupervised at any point. Always swimming with a friend so that, if you do have an issue at any point, there's always somebody there with you.
The scary thing about retention ponds is they're so steep. You know, you get down into the muck, and sometimes it's real difficult to climb out, especially for a young child that might be playing around.
Right. And, history tells us that things like this are going to happen.
Yeah.
And, the quicker we get that word out, and make people start thinking about it, maybe we can reduce those numbers of tragedies that we know are probably going to happen.
Absolutely. And, if you live close to a retention pond, or maybe you have the view of a retention pond and you see some kids out there playing, it's time to notify somebody, whether that be maybe their parents and let them know. And if you don't, go ahead and call the police and let us know, because we'd love to get there before somebody falls in and gets hurt.
Right. One of the things that people can do, like early on, is get swim lessons, especially for your children or adults. I mean, don't be embarrassed to be an adult and go get swim lessons. It never hurts. But teaching our children how to swim at an early age, so look around some of your local community programs. I know the American Red Cross offers things like that at times to teach individuals how to swim so that they understand, when they get in the water, how to save themselves if they would get in trouble.
Yeah. And so, retention ponds are one thing, but, swimming pools are designed to be swam in. And so maybe you think, I've got a fence around, or the neighborhood has a fence around, so, it's safe. We see it every year. Kids climb those fences, they get through those fences, and they drown in the pool. So what are some tips for people that have a pool around?
Well, you have to keep a close eye on what's going around. I know it's very difficult. They put those fences up, but as you well know, children and even adults sometimes want to try to climb those fences when they shouldn't, when those pools are closed, or if it's someone's pool in their private property. So keeping just a good eye on what's going on around your pool. A lot of times you hear the stories of you invite the kids in the neighborhood over to swim at the pool at your home, and then those kids feel like, oh, well, we can go over and swim anytime, and so now they're sneaking in at different hours. Maybe you're gone, and so with today's technology, putting some security cameras around your pool so that when people are in and around your own private property. When it comes to posted pools, such as public pools, things like that, it's just a matter, if you see something, if you see anyone near those pools when they're not open, you need to report that immediately, because history tells us that tragedies can occur when individuals try to enter a pool when the hours aren't, where it's not open.
Yeah, and so also make sure if you own a pool or if you have one in the neighborhood, make sure that rescue equipment is readily available, right? Hanging on the fence close by, not tangled up, not in the shed, not behind locked doors. Because even if you have your pool fenced off, if somebody ends up in that pool, you need seconds matter.
Absolutely. And that just goes back, it kind of leads into what do you see if you do see somebody in trouble in the water? Finding something. Don't try to go in necessarily to rescue them, especially if you're not a strong swimmer by any means, because that individual may end up drowning you both. Yeah. So finding something that floats and get it out to them, whether it's a rope, anything that'll float, get that out to somebody. So keeping things around like that, or start thinking, if you do live near a retention pond in a community or a lake or anything like that, start looking around your property. Hey, what if somebody did get in trouble, what would I throw to them? So there's just things to keep in mind, especially as we start to roll into summer.
Yeah, and so it is. And safety is the key. I mean, these are tragic situations. And like you said, history tells us it's going to happen this summer. Somewhere, somehow, somebody's going to tragically die in the water. And so ask yourself, what are you doing to prevent that? Are you willing to take the necessary steps to make sure that area is safe? And if it's your children, are you willing to make sure you keep an eye on them and watch them if they're outside and you have a retention pond in the area? I'll never forget a couple years ago, I was on vacation at the beach, and I know that'll surprise you, but and I was on vacation, and I heard a group of parents saying, I wish the water would calm down so we wouldn't have to watch our kids so close. And it was a red flag day. It was a don't get in the water day, and the kids were in the water, the parents were watching and they're saying, I wish I didn't have to watch them. That's unfortunate. Yeah,
that's where, I mean, you hate to use the term job security for public safety, but people just don't use common sense. They don't. There's a reason why they have those warnings in place, and it's whether it's even periods, even on some of our local waterways around here. There's times to be out there. Those waters can get choppy, even on our local lakes and recreational areas. So when the warning's put out, you need to heed that warning.
Yeah, and the other thing that we see time and time again is alcohol playing a role in a drowning. Whether that be maybe you drank too much, you don't really know how to swim, but hey, everybody else jumped off the boat, I'm going to jump off too. Or you're so intoxicated that you're just disoriented, you get in the water and you go under and you don't come back up.
Our friends at the DNR deal with this all year long on our state waterways, and people mix alcohol, whether they're operating the boat or someone has too much to drink and they don't have a flotation device on, and we see the drownings every year. Now, we'd like to think our message is reducing those numbers, but it hasn't reduced it enough to where people are paying attention to what's going on. So, people mixing alcohol and swimming, whether it's swimming in your pool in your backyard or if you're out on one of our larger bodies of water here across the state trying to enjoy some water recreation, either way, it leads to tragic consequences.
So let's talk a little bit about boating and safety on the waterways. Like you said, swim in designated areas. Out in the middle of the lake is not a designated swim area. You're hard to see when you're swimming around.
You are, especially if you're especially on a smaller lake. Yeah. They get so crowded sometimes. I can think about being out on one of our local lakes last year, and the boating traffic alone left very little room to just be out recreational swimming. Now, the good thing is a lot of these lakes have areas where you can go to an area and anchor and do all the swimming you want. So it's not something we want to do right out in the middle of the high traffic areas. Yeah. And that's even if you're inner tubing or skiing or anything like that too.
Yeah, I've always kind of thought that was a little ridiculous, is you'll have somebody pulling kids on a tube, which is great fun, and under the appropriate supervision is perfectly fine. But when you're on a busy lake and you're intentionally trying to throw those people off that tube, it's dangerous, because by the time you get back to them, there could be another boat or two coming through there.
Absolutely. It's just being out in the water, I get nervous sometimes. I'll be out boating with my son, and I'll watch other people moving around us or other boaters not paying close attention. And it's worrisome to be dragging somebody through the water. And like you said, you throw them off and then you're circling around to get them, but another boater doesn't see them. And so very dangerous situation in many cases, and people just have to pay attention. So whether you're pulling somebody or if you're another boat operator or on a jet ski or anything like that, you got to have good eyes on where you're going and make sure that you don't run into somebody or something, shallow water, anything like that you're going to hit.
Yeah. So let's change directions, because we're just kind of talking general summer safety, and for the most part that involves swimming, because the warm weather, people gravitate toward the water. but just means more people are outside. Beautiful days coming, and kids are going to be out riding bicycles. They're playing. Some people have very small yards, so that those children playing kind of overspill into the street. Being vigilant is key when you're driving through these neighborhoods and down these streets this summer. Is that right?
We've already seen an uptick with these warm days that we've had. We got a little bit of an uptick of people starting to do things outside, whether people are out walking, the kids are out riding their bikes, people are out working in their yards, cleaning things up, trying to get everything taken care of. So we've seen pedestrians struck. We've seen people injured from working outside because they got the fever. They want to get everything, their mulch done, their gutters cleaned, everything like that. So there's a lot of things that are happening. And we see this at the beginning of every season, especially when warm weather kicks in, as everybody gets really active. Well, we have to pay attention to what's going on around, especially if we're driving, because kids are going to be out, and soon they're going to be out of school. We're getting down to the last month of school pretty much, and the kids are going to be out for summer, and it's going to get busy.
Yeah. Well, and some people out there might be a little worried about Mike Pruitt, doing work in the yard and hurting himself, but you can rest easy because Mike doesn't do his yard work. He pays somebody to do that.
You're right. I do.
So Mike won't be getting injured mowing the grass this summer.
I might get injured watching the guy, if I fall off my chair or something.
You sit on your porch with a cup of tea and watch him. And
yes, I do. I am not. I'm not ashamed to say that I've mowed enough yards for years. Of course, I don't live on a plantation or a large farm like you do, where you have
get goats to mow the yard.
You get goats to mow the yards up there. Nothing against Sheridan, Indiana, right?
Yeah. So anyway. A lot of fun to be had this summer, but being safe is the key, because I can assure you that Mike or I or any other first responder out there never wants to respond to an injured child or an injured person trying to do a recreational activity.
Just about every call going like that, they're preventable.
Yeah.
And if they're predictable, they're preventable. And everybody has to do their part to make sure that we have a safe summer.
Yeah. So again, the kids are out on the bicycles. If you have a kiddo that's riding their bike, be outside with them, watching them, especially if they're really young age, just learning. Turn the TV off, put the phone down, shut the laptop screen, go outside with your children and watch them, so that you can increase that safety and help them see those upcoming hazards.
Yeah, and take safety precautions, helmets. Riding the bicycle, you're a living example of back in the day when you didn't have to wear a helmet on your bicycle.
I do talk to a lot of parents that say, I never wore a helmet and I'm fine, so why should I make my kid wear a helmet? And
you look at them and you go, and the point?
Yeah.
So
that is key, is that safety gear is important, and it's out there, it's affordable, and probably should come standard with bicycles for young kids.
Always. We still see so many kids riding, whether it's skateboards or bicycles, without any type of protective gear on. So it's very important to have that on.
So we've got a minute and a half, Mike. Let's recap. Let's say summer's coming. Pool safety, number 1, number 2, number 3, whatever you want to go through.
Swim in approved places. Never go swimming alone. Always keep an eye on your children. If you see children around a body of water, whether it's a community pool and they're not supposed to be there, or a retention pond, anything like that, we need to notify authorities to let them know, so that we can prevent a tragedy from happening.
And have a rescue plan, especially if you own a pool. You've got to know where that rescue equipment is, or if you live on a retention pond, it might not be a bad idea to have a life ring somewhere accessible, hanging on the back of your shed or the back of your house somewhere, because seconds matter in an emergency like that.
Make sure your pool covers are functional. People, when you leave home, make sure the pool cover's on.
Yeah. So, and that is something that's real popular now, is a cover versus a fence, or both. And don't let laziness allow for a tragedy to happen in your backyard.
The moment you don't think it'll happen to you, it'll happen.
Yeah. So, again, you've been listening to the Indiana State Police Roadshow. My guest today was Captain Michael Pruitt from the Wayne Township Fire Department. Good friend of the show and a frequent guest, because he's got so much knowledge.
Thank you, John.
Thanks for coming.
So kind.
I appreciate you having you. The Indiana State Police Roadshow is brought to you by the Indiana State Police Alliance and Cops for Kids, a subsidiary for the State Police Alliance. You can visit their website at www.indianasfinest.com. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in to the State Police Roadshow. Roadshow out.